for doing this.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Tell us about your earliest memories, your very first memories of wooden boats.
My first memories were when I was a kid, and we actually lived on Lake Simcoe, and we didn't live in an area where you could have any kind of boats because of the sandbars. And I'd come home from school, I was probably in grade 1 or 2, and my dad and I would drive over to this other marina, and the whole marina you could see all the boats except for this one closed off area, because inside was, I think, one of the first wooden boats he ever had, which was Clarie, which I still enjoy driving today. And we would go out in this boat and we would tour around the lake, and we would just enjoy it together. And we would do this almost every evening. But I was probably 6 or 7 years old when we first started to do that.
What is it about Clarie that speaks to you?
Well, I feel like she and I have grown up together in some ways. So, I mean, definitely my first interaction with a boat. And that was the wooden boat that I learned to drive first, all 37 feet of it. And I think that was part of it, is that it was the boat that I learned to really handle a boat on and be out on the water in. And I feel at this point I know her pretty well.
Do your children, you've got 3 children, do you think they'll develop the same interest?
Well, they already have developed the same interest, which is amazing. So, for us, boating it's the boat is just the vehicle for us to get together as a family. It's not, the boats are amazing, and the history of the boat is amazing, and we additionally get to have this opportunity for us to all hang out together. And so I think that's the thing. The kids can rhyme off a few things about the boat, and they know a little bit about the history, and they love going fast, and the wood is different, but we get to do it together. And I think that's one of the key elements, is that, Clarie was not a sea-doo. It was not one of these things. It was a solo transporter on the water. It was something we had to do together. And I think that, that's where some of the most important memories have really emanated from, is the opportunity for us to do this as a family.
What is it you think would spur the interest in your peers out there in a big, broad world, in the maintenance of and the acquiring of wooden boats?
Well, I think part of it is just, the thing I find most fascinating is something happened in my own life where all of a sudden I was really interested in understanding more about where we came from and more about our history. And so, I think it's 2 parts. Yeah, it's amazing to see them out on the water. It's incredible to actually step back and appreciate the craftsmanship and, how do we put wood together in this way, and why don't we see screws all over the outside of the boats, and to really appreciate and contextualize modern boating to, wow, look at the engineering and the artistry that went into the history of these particular boats. I think it starts with making people aware of that piece. And then, like I said before, there are the boats, which are beautiful, stunning works of art. And then there's the opportunity to be able to enjoy them together as a family. And I actually think it's the coming together of those 2 elements that is sort of the secret sauce. We can put art on our wall and it's there and it decorates and it's all those things, but this is almost like living art that we get to experience together.
How long do you think the living art will survive in the generations into the future? What's it going to take to make the boats live forever?
I think like anything, we have to cultivate an interest. Those things that have this capacity to be preserved into the future is because people value what it is that they do. And I think more than ever, we're starting to understand that value is about bringing people together. Value is about community. I love the community that surrounds the people who are interested in these boats. I love the way that we can utilize them as family. I love the way that they get to be living art. I think we need to start to speak to them in the context of that language. Yes, there's this incredible history and context to, in this case, the Muskoka Lakes, which I think is wonderful. But I think it's the way we can make that history come to life that's really of interest and of value to my generation in particular.
Do you often think about that aspect of history? You're out there in a boat, whether you're going fast or you're going slow. Does it occur to you that, gosh, people were doing this 70 years ago, 80 years ago in this boat?
Yeah, a little bit. And again, like as I got a little bit older, and it was interesting because Clarie, this boat that I grew up with, is the same age as my grandmother. And so that, having that context, and the kids would be like, well, how old is it? And I remember this as a kid, I couldn't contextualize age, like I couldn't put this on a timeline. And I said, this boat that we're in right now is the same age as Grandma Dorothy. And they're like, whoa, like she's experienced all these things, she's seen all these things. And then they got to start to imagine. They're like, oh, you know, that was a whole different era. Then this was happening at that time, and this was happening at that time. So we started to place the timeline of the boat against the timeline of history. And suddenly there was context for them to start to understand. And that's the part that's really incredible. We see old cars on the road and everyone stops. They're like, oh my gosh, look at that old car. There's something so compelling about being able to ride in a boat from that same context.
Going slow or going fast?
Oh gosh, if I had to pick between going slow or going fast, I'm gonna pick going fast. Like there's nothing better than the wind in your hair and appreciating the power of this boat. I mean, a lot of these boats are old and they can move. Like the engineering, when you lift them up and you see the bottom and all the things that go into developing and provoking speed, it's amazing. I'm gonna pick fast. You know, one of the things that has really struck me in engaging in this hobby and in this experience is the opportunity to introduce my girls to boating. And I have been very aware for much of my life that you know, there's not as many women who are in these boats, and I don't know why, because it's super fun. You get all the joy of all the speed the same way we would enjoy being in a car. And I think that's one of the things that I enjoy most with respect to my girls, is this amazing capacity to sort of cultivate their interest, but at the same time give them the responsibility and opportunity to take the boats out on the water themselves. So, you know, I was given that opportunity when I was 10 years old. That's when I started to drive Clarie and take Clarie in and out of the boathouse on my own. It made me a better driver in a boat. It made me a better driver in a car. But it increased my confidence generally. And so, you know, I want my kids to have that same experience. I don't want driving old boats to be something that is only available to one particular segment of our population. I'm so excited about the idea of this being something that my girls are interested in doing, that they engage in and know how to stick their head in an engine hatch and understand what's going on just like anybody else. So, you know, for me, that's one of the side effects and one of the privileges of having grown up in these boats, is that I can pass that on to my daughters in a similar way. You know, one of the things that, you know, in my work that I talk to people a lot about is I ask everyone, what's your hobby? What do you do for fun? And I'm amazed at my generation. They look at me and they're like, well, I go to my kid's soccer game or I do this. I'm like, no, but what do you do for fun? And, you know, one of the neat things about these boats is that, yes, you can enjoy them on the water, but the preservation of the boats and the ongoing maintenance of the artistry is also something that can fall to the owner. I know people who just, you know, they love in the winter, they have this place where they go and, you know, they're varnishing this board or they're adding to this board. And so, you know, speaking to this notion of affordability, yeah, there's this amazing opportunity to start to engage and work on and continue to build and preserve this asset that you own, but also this hobby that you are creating for yourself. So I think there's lots of ways to be able to engage in wooden boats. There's lots of ways to be able to enjoy them, frankly, year round. And that's partly what's going to enable us to preserve them, is being able to talk about all of these different elements of it. So absolutely.
Thank you.